You have to wonder what's coming down the pike in both Pittsburgh and Jersey should either of those teams fall completely out of the race. The NHL season is chugging along. We're well past the halfway point. The All-Star break is now behind us. The trade deadline is only a month away, and after that, it's time to turn for home in the stretch drive. With the calendar speeding by, we thought this was a good time to do a quick check on the playoff races. Let's start in the Eastern Conference, where you could argue there's a little more intrigue around who grabs the final two spots. Right now, both the Pittsburgh Penguins and New Jersey Devils are on the outside looking in. And if you told someone before the season that both those clubs would be frozen out, they might tell you to give your head a shake. Now, the Penguins did miss last year's playoffs, dropping their final two games to lowly Chicago and Columbus to miss the postseason for just the second time in Sidney Crosby's career. Kyle Dubas came on as GM in the summer. He traded for Erik Karlsson, and most of us assumed, even with an older core, the Penguins would find a way to grab one of the final two spots. Well, the Penguins' power play is still dreadful, and despite a fantastic season from Crosby, Pittsburgh is in real danger of missing the postseason for the second straight year. If it's a bit surprising to see the Pens outside the big dance, it is downright shocking to see the New Jersey Devils fighting for their playoff lives. A year ago, the Devils were the darling of the league, a young team on the rise, already making big deadline acquisitions like Timo Meier. Now, the huge caveat this year is the Devils have been just pasted by awful injury luck. From Dougie Hamilton to Jack Hughes to Nico Hischier, the very best players on this team have missed games, and in some cases have missed a huge chunk of time. So yes, it's been a season from hell for the Devils, but the goaltending they did not upgrade in the summer has also failed them. You have to wonder what's coming down the pike in both Pittsburgh and Jersey should either of those teams fall completely out of the race. The New York Islanders, of course, have already made a huge move, firing Lane Lambert and replacing him with Patrick Waugh in an attempt to nudge this team above the playoff cutoff. As tough as the years have been on Long Island, if the team gets a new coach bump from Waugh and rides some hot goaltending from Ilya Sorokin to get into the playoffs, they could be exactly the kind of team no high seed is exactly thrilled about seeing in round one. Of course, if there's a couple teams outside the Eastern Conference playoffs we thought would be in, it stands to reason that there's some in who are punching above their weight. And this is where it gets interesting, because as good a story as the Philadelphia Flyers have been all year, they've hit the skids a little bit of late and are in danger of tumbling out of the playoff spot they basically held all year. Meanwhile, a Detroit team that hoped to take a step forward this season has done exactly that, but the Wings still have a long way to go before locking down their first postseason appearance since 2016. The West, meanwhile, doesn't quite feel as high stakes, with the possible exception of the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings aren't back in action until the weekend, when new coach Jim Hiller will take over for the deposed Todd McClellan. LA was in basically a 2-month free fall before making the coaching change, which is why the squad has to be a little concerned about falling out of the playoffs completely. Speaking of coaching changes, the St. Louis Blues, who missed last year's playoffs, have been up and down under new boss Drew Bannister, but they've been getting some wins recently, and the Blues are certainly in the thick of the wild card chase. Sounds funny to say, but the team in danger of missing the playoffs right now that might represent the biggest disappointment, assuming the Kings can get it together, is the Seattle Kraken. They may only be in their third season of play, but the Kraken set the bar high last year with a trip to the second round, and missing the 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs would definitely represent a step back. As for the Predators, they're lurking around the wild card berths, but it's pretty clear Nashville is a team in transition. Whether or not it makes the playoffs, Barry Trotz and Andrew Burnett, a first-year GM and coach respectively, are going to get plenty of run to try and build something sustainable in Tennessee. Now let's get a look at the full ranking. The Oilers' winning streak may be over, but the team has clearly established itself as one of the best in the NHL. Vegas, of course, stopped the Oilers' big streak, and the Knights have been playing much better hockey of late. Buffalo certainly had designs on a playoff spot coming into the season, but it looks like it'll be another sad year in Western New York. The Coyotes hung around the playoff picture for much of the season, but they're going to have to get it in gear fast to climb back into the race. All right, I'm Ryan Dixon. That's all the time we have, but check back next week all season long right here for the Sportsnet Power Ranking.